Ladies and gentlemen, we are 2 days away from the Isle of Armor DLC, maybe even less depending on when you're watching this video. But today, we got an interesting article from IGN. It seems like they've got around 30 minutes of uninterrupted gameplay to watch, and they've told us some pretty interesting stuff. Some things we didn't know before, some things we needed some more clarification on, and they mentioned one thing in particular that excites me as a Pokemon fan. Obviously for the expansion pass, but mainly for the future Pokemon games. We're just going to get some of the small things out of the way first before we dive into more detail. And one thing they mentioned here is that you can access the Isle of Armor pretty much as soon as you enter the wild area, which is basically the start of the game. That's really nice for the new players out there. If they want to try out this new DLC, you know, before they progress further in the main story, they have the option to do that. They're not forcing you to complete the entire game and basically treat this only as post-game content. And I know for us players who have already completed the game, this basically is post-game content, but for the newer players out there, they can access this straight away. But that leaves one question. What will the level of the Pokemon be like? You know, if you're a new player, you're not going to want to go to this island and all the Pokemon are level 60 Pokemon because you'll get destroyed. And for us old players, if all the Pokemon are like level 20, 25 or whatever, it's going to be way too easy and not a challenge at all. But it seems like level scaling is going to be used here, which they mentioned in the article, which makes a lot of sense. It's best of both worlds. You know, if you're a new player, it's good for you. If you're an old player, it's also good for you. Anyway, smaller things out of the way. This part of the article made me smile so goddamn much, man. One issue I had with the wild area in the game was how bland it was. There were some nice parts of it, but it was very open, not much going on in the environment. It was nice that it was big and everything, but there were just some parts that lacked detail, you know. There wasn't enough in the environment to keep me interested long enough. But it seems like in the DLC, they are getting rid of that completely. Here it says the area was full of trees and logs and little details here and there, and even Pokemon interact with the environment, which is another thing that excites me. It seems like Game Freak has heard our complaints about the wild area being pretty bland, or maybe they just wanted to test the waters a little bit more with this DLC and prepare for future Pokemon games, which hopefully means that the wild area in the next few games will be full of life, have so much detail everywhere, and especially if the Pokemon are interacting with the environments, which it says here. It says here that a Pokemon was up in a tree, and most likely to lure it down, you'd have to whistle, you know, like you do with the flying Pokemon. That would be so cool, man. Just seeing Pokemon run out of the trees, run up the trees, whatever. That is so cool. Such a cool little detail. It would make the world feel more, you know, realistic. And it means they are listening to feedback. A lot of people complained about the wild area being so bland, having no detail. That means that for future Pokemon games, it's going to have a lot more detail in it. I know for the next games, it's probably going to be the Gen 4 remakes, and it's very possible they will abandon the wild area completely because it wasn't in Sinnoh and they want to keep it true to the originals. But for Gen 9, I'd be very surprised if they didn't bring the wild area back, or maybe they'll have it so each route is a mini wild area and then there maybe is one huge one in the middle again. But it would be really cool if the routes are expanded, have more detail, especially the wild area, and it seems like they are doing that here. Another thing they mentioned here was that they saw a whale lord in the ocean, which is really cool. Obviously before we couldn't have that because there were only lakes. You can't have a huge ass whale lord in a lake, he has to be in the ocean. So it's nice to see him in his natural environment here. They mentioned that he was huge and it was like surreal seeing a whale lord in the ocean. And one thing that I did wonder as well is how big is the ocean going to be in this game? How far out can you go? There's probably going to be an invisible wall somewhere, but just imagine if you could travel all the way from the island to the mainland on your bike. That would be so cool. Anyway, at this point I'm just rambling. Make sure to subscribe for more Pokemon content and more Nintendo content, of course, and leave a comment down below what you are excited for the most out of this expansion pass. It is so close, man. I can't wait to play it. But anyways, I'll see you all in the next video.